Today's session is about the goddess Arete, which in Greek means excellence and virtue. And today we'll be talking about those principles of excellence versus perfection and perfectionism, which is, on the one hand, of course, perfectionism allows us to strive for better things in our life. But on the other hand, it can be paralyzing, and it can actually be the setup for self-sabotage. So it's a very interesting mechanism, perfectionism. It's something we were all probably expected to be. We were expected to be perfect by our parents or by the standards set at school or by society. But perfection is not a principle to live by. It's not sustainable. It's not going to actually end up making us happy. So what we want to learn, and what we'll discuss in this session, is how we can move over to excellence, rather. How excellence can become the best of what we have to offer. How we can cultivate our best qualities in order for them and for our lives to be excellent. So I'll talk about those dynamics in a moment, but we'll start with a visualization. We'll just start by sitting comfortably. We'll do 20 breaths to go into the visualization. We might do another visualization at the end as well. This is just to center us and to get us in the right space. So let's all start by just closing our eyes, and then we'll take one long deep breath through the nose or mouth, and then 4 short, long, 4 short, and let's just do 5 more. Keep your eyes closed as you settle into your body. Let your body become quiet and still. Let your body feel safe and like a good container for your spirit, for your life, container for all your experiences. And just feel the sensations that are there. Maybe there are sensations that support this feeling of comfort, this feeling of having a powerful container. Maybe there are sensations that don't feel safe or that don't feel comfortable, especially in connection with our theme for the day, which is around excellence versus perfectionism. So now we just take a deep breath and release any of that discomfort, release any of that stuff holding you in the body. And now become aware of your emotions of the last 24 hours, the prominent emotions of the last while. What are some of the heavy ones? What are some of the things that have been holding you back? Emotions of sadness or depression, anxiety or frustration, that are just preventing you from being balanced and centered. And now become aware of the other emotions, perhaps the more pleasant ones, maybe the ones of contentment and peace that come up at times, otherwise of joy, excitement. Let those emotions also be there. And now I just want you to breathe into the emotion of your true self, your true essence. Not the conditioned fears, not the conditioned doubts. Just into your essence. Perhaps a little bit more of who you were as a child, or how you feel when you're in the zone, when things flow, when you feel connected. Breathe into those feelings so that you can be more at one with your essence, with your truth. And expand that joy of communing with your inner being, your truest being. Just take one more long, deep breath into that. And now let go of any thoughts, worries, doubts, preoccupations. Just release so that you can be clear and focused in the now, in this moment. Also, now expand your awareness even further. Expanding your awareness to include more of your soul, your spiritual self and aspect. Your soul, which is your connection to your higher mind. Your soul, which as it continues to expand and reach outwards, connects you to the divine, to godliness. So this soul presence within you and all around you just allows you to become even truer to who you are. And as you expand your awareness, you expand your perception of yourself and of your world. And maybe it even feels like you're looking in on yourself or down on yourself from a great height, which means that you can see your life with greater objectivity, a caring objectivity, of course. But from this broader perspective, I want you to look at yourself and look at your life. Just get a sense of your relationship with perfectionism, of the ways in which you push yourself to be perfect. And sometimes that push is because you're following your passion and you want to be the best that you can in doing what you love. Sometimes that push for perfection can be into areas that don't fit your true essence. It may be that you believed you had to pursue, or you were told you had to pursue. So get a sense of where the lies around your perfect being or perfect life are. Could be some of your dreams ahead, some of the things that you want to manifest might be out of alignment with your true calling. But perhaps a younger you made certain decisions about what your life should be or how you should live. So get a sense of what those lies of the perfect vision are about. And in all of this, I just want you to take a few deep breaths, and as you take these breaths, you center yourself in love and compassion for yourself. You connect with your heart so that you can truly be at one with your truest purpose. You can be at one with what your soul desires for you to pursue. And remember, whenever you pursue what you truly love, what is truly your calling, things flow. When you pursue dreams of the lie, things get in the way. Or maybe you sabotage yourself. Or maybe you hold back on yourself in some way. Or the divine doesn't open the doors because the path would be wrong. So in all of this, you can reconnect to a sense of trust. Your true soul expression is your passion. When you follow your passion, you can do so with excellence. The lies of your conditioning or decisions made by the ego are the opposite. They feel like effort. They bring up resistance, perhaps, or you find excuses. So I just want you to see those two aspects. Your soul expression and excellence, and some of the lies that push you towards a false idea of perfection. So breathe into that. And we'll explore this later on. Just get a few insights about yourself and about your life. Just take one more deep breath as you start to return. Opening your eyes back here in the room. Good. So we'll start off our session today with drawing of the card for the month for us. Of course, this is collective, but at the same time it's personal. There will be points that touch you and make sense to you. And we've got the goddess Athena here, and she of course is the goddess of strategic war as opposed to aggressive war. And she is also the goddess of wisdom. So that's where the strategy comes in. And she's actually very much in alignment with what we're going to be talking about today. For example, the mother of Arete is called Praxidike, which is one of the goddesses of justice. And Athena has also got an aspect of justice. She fights a just war. She balances the good and the bad in order to see what is a just war, what is the right way ahead. And Athena is very much about living in integrity with self. It's finding the space and the time to connect back to yourself, your center, and to really ask yourself, what is my truth at this time? And given that truth, the next step with Athena is, how do I fight for this truth? Or how do I put energy out into the world to make this truth come about and be expressed? And again, that ties in very much with the energy of Arete. It's about feeling what is excellence, feeling what is your true nature, and then putting that into the world. So it's not a theoretical type of approach to life and the world. And as we'll discuss later on in the session, where we really get tripped up in this question of excellence versus perfection is that perfectionism is largely a construct of the mind, a construct of what my head thinks would be perfect. And it might be a very beautiful idea, and we see this in politics all the time. There are very beautiful ideas out there, but a lot of them just are not practical. They just cannot actually be brought into the world. So Athena is that energy of being able to discern what's right, what's wrong, what's possible, what's practical, what's a good pursuit, and then having the courage, the energy to actually put that into the world and to pursue that. So the card Athena in our months is really about thinking about what we want to do, what's important for us in this month to come, finding the strategies to put those things into practice, and then kind of having a plan and following through on that plan day to day. Athena is also the goddess of protection. She's the goddess of kind of opening doors as well. When we are in alignment with our highest purpose, those doors open. When obstacles and resistances come up, what does that mean? Does it mean that we're resisting within ourselves? Or does it mean that the divine out there, allegedly sort of so-called out there, the divine out there is stopping us because it's showing us that that is not a correct path for us to follow? And that is, of course, again, where we need to go back to our center and discern what is right for me, what is the just path, as opposed to inflated intellect or inflated sort of habits. Very often we get stuck on certain paths because of our habits, because of our fears of changing path, because of our desire maybe to please others, etc. So Arete herself, as I mentioned, is the goddess of excellence. The word Arete in Greek means excellence, literally. And her Roman equivalent is virtus, which is where our word virtue comes from. So even though it's not exactly the same personification or word or principle, Arete really does have that principle of following the virtuous path. But virtuous not in the sense of being a good girl or a good boy, or in the sense of what we were kind of taught as children, or definitely through religion, like a moral virtue imposed by an external system. The word vir in Latin relates to, well, it means man, first of all, but it also relates to courage. The courage to be able to listen to what is your truth, what is your excellence, and then to be able to put that into the world. And again, it's interesting that Athena came up in this context. So Arete is not only about having an idea of excellence, but it's also of having the courage and the follow through to put it in the world, to make it happen, to manifest it. So Arete in that sense also then relates to having a conception of what our highest potential is and what our highest truth is. And then, first of all, being able to see it. And then second of all, finding the ways and the strategies to put that into the world and to bring that into manifestation. So Arete is always a seed that exists within us. We all have the potential for Arete. But at the same time, we need to have the courage to actually cultivate that Arete. And that is a very strong distinction that the ancients made. Excellence isn't something that only some get and others don't. And excellence isn't something that once it's given to you, you've arrived and everything can flow. And I think those are very much the principles of excellence. It's a constant process of cultivation. So perfection is kind of the exact opposite of that. We can be perfectionists and we can put some of that perfectionistic vision into the world and into our lives, but very often, or certainly, there will be many obstacles that we have to confront just because our image of what's perfect, number one, might be completely out of alignment with our true nature. because, again, it's something that society might have decided for us is a good thing, or our parents, or at some stage in our life we may have been enamored by something, by a particular vision of a particular lifestyle, perhaps, having lots of money and having a beautiful house or whatever. Or it might be the ways that we thought we had to behave in order to be a good partner, etc. So the distinction between perfectionism and excellence in this regard is that, first of all, in this reality, in this physical reality, perfection is pretty much impossible. We live in a material reality, and the material world is kind of flawed. There is always going to be some way in which, some of our, let's say, material creations can be broken, or they can decay over time. And of course, the same also goes to our belief systems in the world. I think the history of civilization and religion has been about finding the perfect belief system, or finding the perfect moral code, or finding the perfect way to live. But if you look at all the religions in the world, if you look at all the spiritualities in the world, if you look at all the ideologies in the world, there are always points that make a lot of sense and that have a great amount of truth. And I would say across the board, all of those also have their failures and the ways in which they cannot work, and the ways in which these systems or religions just, prove themselves to not work. And that's kind of where our human selective vision comes in. If we follow a particular religion or ideology, we, maybe focus on the good that we see within that ideology, and we neglect the bad points. And the detractors of said belief system will focus on the bad points and will maybe neglect or diminish the good points. Even in our quest as humans, for example, to find the perfect system of divination, be it the tarot cards, be it astrology, they're never 100% accurate. And some people can swear by certain systems, but very often all of these systems are proven to be imperfect. And that doesn't mean that they don't have value. That doesn't mean that they don't have their lessons and their teachings. I'm talking across the board, divination systems, ideologies, religions, they all have their values. But we have to admit that they're not perfect. And I guess living with something that's not perfect is a big step in the direction of maturity. And of course, that goes for relationships. We have this perception of our true soulmate, if we're lucky enough to ever meet them. Once we meet them, we will have arrived and the relationship will just flow beautifully. No, never. We can have excellent relationships, but there are always going to be some points that just don't match, that just don't work. And that's actually completely okay. If everything was perfect in, let's say, a relationship, there would possibly never be any conflict, and then there would never be any ways in which we are pushed to grow and extend ourselves and look at ourselves and understand ourselves. The same goes for life. If we could come in and have a perfect life, we would be totally unconscious, because everything would, and here we can say there's kind of two opposites. If, let's say that we could live the absolute pure spiritual expression in a society that was absolutely pure and spiritual, yes, maybe one could say then that could be like a perfect life. But then we would be living according to certain broader spiritual principles, not limited to some of our human or societal principles. But given the way that we live in society, let's say we, had everything so-called perfect, the perfect parents, the perfect financial circumstances, the perfect job, etc. We would probably just really grow up, or not really grow up. We would not really mature. Everything would kind of just be a given. Everything would just kind of happen without us needing to look into ourselves. And this, of course, takes us to that principle, also a very powerful, important Greek principle of know thyself. And that really was the foundation and the center of ancient Greek philosophy and religion. And of course, those words, know thyself, were written above the temple of Delphi, which was the sanctuary of Apollo and Dionysius. It was also the most famous oracle in the ancient world, which is kind of interesting and ironic. It's like, as you walk into this oracle, in order to get a reading about your future, there are written the words, know thyself. And I think there's a very important lesson there in many ways. It's like, do you even need this oracle? If you really know yourself, you wouldn't need this oracle, number one. And number two, the broader principle of know thyself is know yourself, warts and all. Know what you can do well, know what's perfect and beautiful about yourself, but you have to know what's difficult, stuck, resistant, ugly about yourself. Not in order to punish you, not in order to denigrate you, but so that you can then cultivate the right path. And that is, I guess, where our free will and our choice comes in. And if you think about it, all the systems, political, religious, otherwise, they really actually don't want you to have free will. There's a doctrine, and then you've got to fit into the doctrine. The doctrine's perfect, the humans somehow fail, and they've got to try and fit into that doctrine. So when we know ourselves, we know what our likes are, we know what our dislikes are, we kind of know what works in our lives and we know what doesn't work. Very often, people who are on the path of transformation, self-growth, self-contemplation, they're doing that in the beginning, certainly because they want to become perfect, because they want their lives to become perfect. Of course, there's that distinction coming in. We'll never be perfect, but we can be excellent. But what we learn as we embark upon this journey of transformation is, I think, fundamentally that at the end of the day, you don't change. You're stuck with yourself and you're going to stay fundamentally the same person. But through your self-knowledge, then you can start to change the bad habits. You can start to change the destructive behaviors. You can look at those, understand them, you can know them, know what the warning signs are, and then make the necessary changes or take the corrective steps. So we can change the way we kind of react to ourselves and the way that we react to the world, but fundamentally we are always going to have certain characteristics and traits that will stay with us forever. And I think in the early phases of people's spiritual path and spiritual growth, that's a big obstacle because people want to become perfect. They want to do it right. And then, of course, there are lots of books and videos and philosophies that say this is the right way. You have to, in your heart of hearts, this is how you should think and feel. And one of the fundamental or basic ones of that is kind of love yourself as thy neighbor. That's a really difficult one to do because we're all going to come across people that we just instinctively dislike, and we're all going to come across people that we just click with naturally. So, that principle of love thy neighbor is not maybe as literal as it might appear. It might be more, as we nuance that and as we learn more about ourselves and about life with that principle, it might be have unconditional love, but also have discerning, also know where to put your energy, also know with which people you can make a difference and who you can't make a difference with, for example. Because we can keep bumping our heads against the same wall if we take some of these spiritual principles too literally. So, all of these spiritual ideas are very nuanced. Another one that kind of also causes problems, I think, sometimes is that we are all one, and yes, we are all one. Yes, we are all energy, and my continuum at some point will touch your continuum, and we can influence each other, and we are one. But yes, then there are some times that we are very much individuals, and we very much need our own space, and we very much need to create safe spaces for ourselves or distance ourselves from certain situations or people. So that principle of really knowing ourselves, I think, is a lifelong journey. I don't think that there is an arrival point, because we will only really know ourselves fully once we die, and then we take that experience over. So knowing ourselves is an ongoing journey, and knowing ourselves with excellence, therefore, is that path of reading the signs along the way, taking one step at a time, understanding our environment, understanding how we feel in our environment as this unfolds. That balanced path also of excellence is one step at a time, but also having the vision and the goal ahead, kind of knowing which path to take when we get to a crossroads, but having an awareness of the present moment, as well as kind of the direction in which we're headed. Perfectionism, on the other hand, is where we're very much focused on the goal. We're very much focused on where we're going and where we want to be. And we're constantly criticizing everything along the way in terms of, does it fit the goal or not? So we become rigid, we become stuck in a particular way of thinking or expectation or a particular way of looking things. And when we're, metaphorically speaking, when we're walking this path and we're trying to walk a straight path towards that goal, instead of maybe following the curves of the road and the curves of the topography of our path, we're going to try and walk through brambles, or we're going to try and, walk down the valleys instead of following the line of, the path that maybe stays on a particular altitude or level. So, when we get so stuck on getting there, we don't interact not only with the topography, metaphorically speaking, of our world, but we don't actually enjoy the journey. We don't actually have an unfolding experience. We're so focused on there that we don't feel here and what's happening now. What am I feeling now? How am I reacting to my circumstances? How am I evaluating my progress? When we're on this path of excellence, we can acknowledge what we've actually done well, what we've actually started to change and adjust. When we're on the path of perfectionism, it becomes very difficult, because everything is measured against this kind of impossible, idealistic, perfect image. And therefore, whenever we fail or whenever we don't live up to that image, we beat ourselves up. So this path then of following excellence is also very much a path of humility. It's very much a path of self-knowledge. It's not about being so excellent that you're removed from the rest of the world, that you're removed from yourself because you're living in this rarefied ivory tower. You're very much involved in your life, and you're very much involved with your feelings as they go. But of course, we can also cultivate the quality of experience and the quality of feeling that we want to carry forward with ourselves. And I think that's another very important principle in general in life, is we're not at the mercy of our emotions and feelings. If someone does something that triggers us, maybe the first X amount of times we are triggered and upset, but then maybe as we learn about ourselves, we can say, I'm going to choose not to go into that. I'm going to choose to maintain my space and my authority over my own emotions. And at other times, in our day-to-day lives, we might wake up with a particular emotion. We might just feel sad for some reason. Nothing specific happened that made us sad, but maybe we saw a movie, or maybe we heard a song, or maybe something was said on the news that triggered us. So then we go into this place of sadness. And that is the point, again, at which we need to be able to assess for ourselves. This emotion that I'm feeling today, is this real? Is this self-indulgence? Or is there something I can do about it? If I know that I tend to get into this particular mood, maybe if I go into the garden and prune a few trees or dig out a few weeds, I know that's going to make me feel better. And we can then start to direct not only our moods and our behaviors, but also, of course, what we achieve. And when we have that sense of achievement, that does contribute to our sense of excellence. So in a moment, we'll go into another visualization. We'll go in with meeting the personification of Arete on the one hand, and on the other hand, we'll kind of meet a personification of our perfect image of ourselves and who we think we should be, not, what would be the best expression once we've gotten to know our true selves. Let's go into it. So make sure you're sitting upright, comfortable. And we're just going to close our eyes now. And let's just take a few long, deep breaths. Hold it in for a bit and then release. And then one more long, deep breath. And if you want to keep breathing long, deep breaths as I speak, you can do so. Keep breathing in this way. And in a moment, I'm going to count to 5. And on 5, you're going to find yourself in a safe place in nature where you feel very connected and very true to your innermost being. So on 5, 1, 2, relaxing with each number, 3, letting go of the world outside, 4, connecting more with this place, be it imaginary or a place you've been to before, 5, be in this safe place in nature now, feel perhaps the breeze blowing through your hair. Feel your feet on the ground, comfortable. See the colors, perhaps of flowers and vegetation, or the blue of the sky. Singing birds, the rustle of the wind in the trees you might hear. Just take a deep breath and just feel very satisfied and content to be here. Very joyful. And now in the distance you see a figure walking your way, and you soon realize that it's your soul, your higher self, kind of personified, taking on a form. It might be like a bubble of light or even an animal. So your soul approaches, and as they approach, just feel a great presence of love. Feel understood and seen. Maybe you just look into the eyes of your soul. Feel greatly connected. And now your soul takes you by the hand and leads you onto a very narrow path through the plants. maybe a windy path. And you get to a point where there's a clearing, perhaps in the forest. In the middle of the clearing there's a fire. So you go and sit down by this fire. And this is the fire of truth. The fire that consumes and burns away the lies and the illusions, the beliefs that are lies, the habits that are lies, that do not fit your true purpose. So as you sit by this fire, warming yourself there, open and willing to burning away the lies in your life, the lies you tell about yourself, the lies that others have told you about you. Sit in the presence of this fire, the presence of truth, with your soul next to you. And at this point, you don't need to specifically feel anything, or maybe staring into these flames brings up some issues for you. But just feel very vulnerable and true in the presence of this fire. And soon you notice that on the opposite side of the fire, in two different areas, to your right you see one figure, to your left on the other side of the fire another figure. The figure on your right you soon begin to see represents Arete, the goddess of excellence. And this goddess might even look a little bit like you. The you that has followed the path of excellence. Notice this figure on the right, and then on the left is a different aspect of you, and this is the you that needs to be perfect, or what your vision of perfection was or has been. So let's spend a little bit of time now with that you on the left, the perfectionist you. Just see what this aspect of you looks like. Maybe you see it in what this figure is wearing, or how they hold themselves. Or maybe there's lots of symbols or words or understandings that flow from this person. And now ask this aspect of you, the perfectionist you, to take a few steps towards the fire, not into the fire, but just closer, where that light of this fire of truth burns brighter. And maybe you see a few shifts and changes, maybe you feel those in your own body. But the lies cannot withstand the light of this fire of truth. Maybe you even see or feel what gets burnt away. Maybe you see visually bits falling off this perfectionist you. Maybe you see different visions collapse in on themselves. Old visions that you've held. Just let this perfectionist you stay there to the left on the other side of the fire as you now focus on Arete, on the right side, Arete, this goddess of excellence. Being a goddess means that she is an archetype. She is a principle that exists beyond human projection. Principle of excellence. And as you focus in on her, maybe you see she takes on a different shape and form, or certain colors or lights reflect off her. Maybe there are symbols around her, but this is that universal principle of excellence. And more specifically, as you connect with this energy, you start to get a sense of what this excellence means for you as an individual. Being in the presence of universal excellence, she supports you in understanding your own personal excellence. And maybe you feel this as a warmth, or see this as a light that is projected towards you. Maybe Arete takes a few steps closer to you and you do the same in order to enhance and intensify this connection. Excellence. What are some of the things you do excellently? Or maybe some of the things that you can create in your life that you can start to do excellently. Or maybe this is an attitude that you take on, replacing old perfectionism or old stagnation with excellence. Breathe into this now. That breath holds the excellence, and keep going as I speak. At first you might not even know what this means, or at first you might not have any of the insights that have come up yet, but just by breathing into it, by focusing your intention there, you're creating the connection. And remember, this Arete figure is transpersonal. In being present here with Arete, you're invoking this energy of excellence into you, into your life. And as you strengthen yourself and strengthen your vision with Arete, I want you to look back to the other figure there, the perfectionist you. Maybe you notice that they've changed. Maybe items of clothing or symbols have fallen off, have withered. Maybe this perfectionist you looks less like an expectation or a lie and more like who you really are. So standing here closer to the fire, this perfectionist you starts to transform, starts to become the you that lives with excellence. And now I'm going to ask you to approach that figure on the left-hand side and stand closer, maybe within arm's reach. Just look them in the eyes. See the ways in which they have been hurt, how they've sabotaged themselves, what they've learned in the process. Feeling more and more compassion as you look at yourself now. As you look at yourself, shifts and changes start to take place. And this becomes the you of excellence. The goddess Arete on the other side is sending energy, intention towards you in order to shift and transform not only you in your body in this moment, but also that you of excellence that is developing. So maybe now there's some messages or symbols or words or understandings that come your way as to how you can live more excellently, or which areas of excellence you would like to pursue. Breathe into it. Feel the support of Arete, the support of this fire of truth. Feel its warmth, its aura. And this feels empowering. This feels transformative. So thanking the you of excellence, thanking Arete, thanking your soul. Just remember to acknowledge what's happening in your body, your emotions, and your mind, any insights and information that have come to you. Be grateful for those. Be grateful for what lies ahead, the hope of what lies ahead, the potential yet to be explored in your life. There is a path ahead of excellence for you. All you need to do is follow step by step. The fire fades, those figures, beings return to their own realms. In a moment, I'll count from 5 to 1, and on 1, you'll just be back here in the room, awake and alert, with these energies, insights, and healings working on you and in you. 5, 4, coming back slowly. 3, take a deep breath. 2, and 1, open your eyes, be back here. Good. So, thank you, everyone. I think Arete is such a lovely figure. You know, we can talk about the theory and we can talk about excellence, perfectionism, and what that means. But the reason why I like to do these visualizations as well is because these principles aren't just cold principles, dry words. They're archetypes. And these archetypes take the forms of gods and goddesses. And that's why the gods and goddesses are so powerful, is because they give flesh and blood and human characteristics to these universal principles. And when we personify these things, we can relate to them, and then we can make them happen in our lives. So at this point, are there any questions or comments anyone wants to add or share? Before we go into that, I will also in June be starting a live classical mythology deck course. And in that course, we'll be learning about the gods and the goddesses, but we'll also be doing kind of practical ways to make these archetypes more powerful in our lives. And we'll also be learning how to read the cards, you know, for yourself and for others. So it's kind of a 3-tiered course that we'll be doing with those cards and with the archetypes. So I'm very excited to get that course going.